All right. Welcome in to our virtual Pride trans panel discussion. My name is Claire, and from the CR Pride Fest board, welcome in to our panelists and everybody who's chosen to watch this video. I'm going to introduce Amy. She's going to moderate our panel discussion today. Welcome, Amy, and the floor is yours.
All right, well, thank you all for joining. I would like to, excuse me, thank you all of our panelists and everybody watching at home, and welcome to kind of our first trans panel platform that we're doing here tonight. So basically, as we're kind of starting the thing, I know as we look out into kind of the world and our situation right now, we all kind of find ourselves a little bit stuck indoors with the COVID-19 emergency. And I know that kind of put a lot of, pressure as far as like Pride is concerned. And I know it's kind of frustrating to be stuck inside and just kind of stuck. So with that kind of in mind, what we'd like to kind of do is kind of build a foundation on this one and kind of talk about basically our coming out stories, kind of so to speak, and kind of hopefully to provide some inspiration and knowledge to those people who still may be struggling or coming to terms with their own identity, and kind of the things that they can either expect or stories that they can get inspiration and hope from. So with that, what I'll go ahead and do is I'll kind of just take you on the line here and just ask you just briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, and then we will I'll kind of, after we get done with the introductions, I'll, kind of one by one let you guys go and basically tell your story on it. And then after that, we'll kind of have an open forum for a little bit of discussion of other topics. So without further ado, I think I'm going to turn it over to Ben here real quick and let him go first and introduce himself. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. So my name's Ben, and I live in Iowa City with my partner, Mary, and our 2 cats, and I'm a teacher.
All right, and Sam?
I'm Sam. I'm originally from Chicago, moved to Marion, Iowa, where I'm married to my partner on Halloween this past year, and we have 4 cats. I heard cats and I got excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
All right, Oliver?
Hi, I'm Oliver Winman. I am a massage therapist here in Cedar Rapids, and I've just started teaching trapeze yoga, which I'm currently in my yoga room at work. I am married to my wife, Lucy, who will be on the trans woman panel after this. And we don't have any cats, sorry, but I do have a snake and a corgi, and my Welsh corgi is named Jet, and she's super cute.
All right, thank you, Oliver. Chase?
I'm Chase Taylor. I'm 23. I am a barista at Starbucks, and I have a dog named Cooper. Currently not seeing anybody or anything, so.
I know we saw Cooper earlier. He may or may not make an appearance. I don't know. And then we have Nick with us as well. Nick.
Hey there, I'm Nick. I am a 27-year-old. I am a foster parent. That's what I do full-time pretty much. My partner, Karen, works at a daycare, and I stay home with the kids. We've also got 10 pets. We've got 5 cats, 3 dogs, and 2 turtles. Kind of a full household. And we're also in the process of adopting an infant right now.
Nice. All right. So I guess like the second part here, what we're going to do is just kind of tell us a little bit about your kind of coming out and kind of what led to that process, the decision. Like I said, feel comfortable to tell us whatever you feel is appropriate for your story, and we'll kind of leave it like there. So I'll turn it right back over to Nick. I know you just talked last, so I'd like to just have you talk first this time, okay?
Okay. So like I said, I'm Nick. I guess my story began when, I don't know, I didn't always feel like a guy, to be honest. It kind of started more as I got more comfortable with myself. in 2009, I went to Mary's, Hamburger Mary's, and saw my first drag show, and I was hooked. So I became a drag performer under the name Nick James. I did that for a while, and it just kind of felt really nice, really comfortable. And then I just kind of started feeling more and more masculine and feeling like, you know, this is kind of how I want to be. This is who I want to be. This is who I am. So, and about 4 years ago, I came out as Nick instead of going by my preferred, like my legal name. And then last July, I started on testosterone. Before that, I had the option to get on testosterone, but I wanted a family, so I waited on that. But yeah, and that's kind of about it for me. Can't hear you.
I know, apparently having headset issues. Is that okay? Is everyone hearing me now?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, I'm just gonna abandon that then real quick. All right, very much. Thank you for your story, Nick, on that. I very much miss Hamburger Mary's. I'll tell you that. That was one of my favorite kind of hangouts for a long time. It was really sad when it closed. But let's go ahead and let's go here and hear a little bit of Chase's story.
Yeah, so I'm Chase. I came out as trans in 2014 at 18 years old. I lived a pretty sheltered life growing up, so I wasn't ever really exposed to anybody who was transgender or hear about it at all until I went off to college. And then after I came out, I got my name changed probably about 2 years after that, so about 4 years ago. I started testosterone 4 years ago, so I'm coming up on my 4-year anniversary in September. I got a hysterectomy 2 years ago, and I just got approved to get top surgery this fall. So very excited about that. As for like my journey, I've been really fortunate. I've had a lot of support from my family and from my friends, so that's been really good. I know that a lot of people don't necessarily have that. I am also really fortunate to be working at Starbucks and have that all-inclusive environment in my life and a safe space to be myself. Other than that, I don't really have anything to add quite yet at the moment.
All right, thank you for that. Let's go ahead and just kind of go in. Oliver, let's hear about your story.
My story is kind of similar to both Nick and Chase's, and the fact that similar to Nick and when I started doing drag is when everything kind of clicked. The way that I dealt with my dysphoria beforehand is I went hyper feminine. Like I knew something was off, but I didn't quite know what. So whatever reason, I just went, well, maybe if I were more, just whatever more would be. And so I was doing extreme corsetting. I could get my waist down to 22 inches. It was like, there was a lot of body mods that were happening that were very much just me trying to find something. And then I did drag for the first time, and I went, oh, that's what it is. Oh, and that was actually a really great thing for me. 2 years ago, I started T, which was the day after my complete hysterectomy. And I needed that for other kind of medical reasons. And also we had already started our Gender Adventures YouTube channel and filmed pretty much all of me on drugs for the hysterectomy. But it also helped make it a lot less scary. Since then, I have, let's see here, I've just been living my life and trying to be open and honest with who I am. And sometimes that involves some really, non-binary days, but I'm just being me.
All right, thank you very much for that, Oliver. That's a great story. And then let's see, Sam.
Um, so I discovered for myself about towards the beginning of 2019 that I was transgender, only due to the fact that I was talking to a friend of mine, and at the time we were really close, and I decided to confide in him and told him I wasn't really comfortable being as feminine as I dressed. I absolutely hated it. A lot of the times I would go home and I'd be upset because I just didn't feel right, and I cried a majority of that time. And I knew of transgender, but I just didn't think that was something that was for me. But he kind of, I guess, opened my mind to the possibility that that's something that I should consider, like if I don't feel very right, and like being somewhere in the middle wasn't exactly where I wanted. And I eventually started to dress more masculine, and I started feeling more comfortable. My favorite of the journey was at the beginning, because I went to the hair salon and I told the lady I was getting a haircut, and my hair at that time was about up to here. And when I showed her the haircut, she just looked at me and she grabbed my hair and she's like, I don't want to see all this prettiness go. And I'm like looking at her like, yeah, but I do. So just chop it right off. As time went on, I started testosterone in May. So I'm a year and a couple months on testosterone now. And luckily my mom was very supportive of my decision, so it was really easy to like continue to transition. I did get some nasty comments along the way, a lot of, well, you're too pretty to be a guy, and it was very awful for the first couple of months because my voice didn't drop a whole lot until like maybe August, September. That's when it started getting like really noticeable, and I didn't sound like the Wicked Witch of the West. And so just so far it's been a lot better than it has in the beginning, and I was fortunate enough to find a partner within that time that was super accepting and wasn't like super judgmental, because a lot of the people I talked to as friends or family were just like really rude about it. Unfortunately I stayed fairly close to my birth name, just to make it easier on my family. But in all honesty, that probably wasn't a name I would have picked for myself if I had the choice. But I knew like my family wouldn't get used to it, so I just stuck with Sam. Made it easy for everyone.
All right, thank you definitely for that. And I definitely enjoy hearing all about your stories here. And last but certainly not least, I want to give Ben the floor here and let him tell a little bit about his journey.
Thanks. So my journey is a little bit different because I'm a little bit older. So just growing up in the 70s, obviously things were a little bit different. I always knew I was a boy since I was like 3. I mean, there was never a second when I didn't know I was a boy. And so kind of going through that confusion, it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I literally never saw a transgender man until 1999, when I happened to run across a book by a photographer called Lauren Cameron. And so I just never made that connection in that little child's mind. You know, I'm a boy, everybody else thinks I'm a girl. I never made that connection to anything that an adult might do. I sort of still kind of stayed in that very simplistic kind of viewpoint of boy girl. So the whole idea of being transgender was something I didn't see much at all. I knew the word transsexual, interestingly. I knew who Renee Richards was when she transitioned, and she was a tennis player in the 70s. Just saw that in the news. But not only was she male to female, but she was a grown up and I was 5. So I just literally never thought there was anything I could do about it. Fortunately, I had wonderful, wonderful parents. And despite it being the 70s, I could dress however I wanted. I could play with whatever toys I wanted. I mean, I never had any adults in my life that I had one librarian when I was 10 years old who said, "Oh, honey, that book isn't for girls." And I said, "Well, my parents would disagree with you," and checked it out anyway. But that was literally, pretty much the only time that there was any issue that way in terms of how I was expressing my gender. But I came out when I was 36 years old in the summer of 2001. And I'd been with my partner for 8 years by then, and that was not the easiest thing in the world at that point. And we're still together, and it's all good now. But it was a little bit rocky, and we talk about that a lot. We've been on panels together and whatnot. And so it's been 16 years now since I've had all my surgeries and everything's been legal, and that was before gay marriage was legal. So I was living as a lesbian before. So at that particular point, my partner, Mary, and we'd been married at our church, but it wasn't legal. And so then after I transitioned and was legally male, we had what we call our Uncle Sam wedding. So we had a legal wedding at that particular point, and that was, it's been 15 years ago now. So yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
All right, thank you so much for sharing all of your stories. Those are definitely very amazing and very inspirational. I know one thing that I'm curious about here too, and I think both Oliver and Nick, you had kind of discussed a little bit how you kind of found your path while doing like drag performances. And I think the thing that I'm curious on a little bit, and this is also a question to the rest of you too, is when you first started, after you kind of first knew that path that you were on, that the transitioning was as a path that you were needing to take, where did you turn for your like support network? Was it largely within like the community, like if you were within the drag scene, things like that? Was it friends or family? What kind of support did you turn to? Were there any other organizational groups active at that time that you could find support for? So I guess I'll kind of leave the floor open if you want to address that, and just kind of take me through a little bit of that, if you would, please.
So I'm willing to talk, I guess. One of the things that for me was I actually started talking with my partner about it, and it's not the partner I have now. And I started doing drag, I think, 4 years ago. And I happened to be going to Planned Parenthood for just regular health stuff and mentioned it. And they gave me this awesome list of people that are just transgender friendly healthcare providers. And that helped me get in contact with the therapist that I have now that ended up helping with my HRT recommendation letter and finding the healthcare provider that I have. As far as my support network goes, my friends and family have been absolutely wonderful. When I came out to my mom, it was a situation of we were kayaking. I was like, "Hey, Mom, so I think you've noticed that I've been wearing men's clothing a lot more." And she just went, "I have 2 sons, I know." And I went, "Oh, that's so easy." But it was a good network, and kind of then reaching out a bit more to the LGBTQ plus community has been wonderful as well.
Anyone like to add onto that too?
If I could. So when I started, originally it was just my family. And when I posted on Facebook of coming out, one of my friends was fortunate enough to know somebody that was also transgender and introduced me to it was a trans masculine group alliance. I probably butchered the name. and it was for people that were non-binary or trans male, and they would meet every Friday and just have like this big group where you can sit and discuss different topics and how to like navigate this whole like experience and journey, and like what you can do to like safely bind, or if you use Packers, or even like ways to come out to your family and your coworkers, and just like different resources to just kind of help you on a day-to-day basis so you don't feel like you're completely alone. And it was really nice because you would meet every Friday, or not every Friday, every other Friday for 2 hours, and then afterwards you guys can like go out and like it was in Boys Town in Chicago, so you know the gay scene, everybody can sit there and go to any bar that they wanted to as long as they were over 21. And we would all just like walk down together to this bar that was down the street, and we would just kind of sit and talk and just get to know each other and like find out each other's stories and good ways to like see like I guess manage your day-to-day dysphoria. And it was actually really helpful. And right now they're doing Zoom calls until COVID's over. So if I feel like joining in on a random Friday that they're doing it, I can still jump in even though I'm in Iowa. So
Excellent. Anyone? Oh, go ahead, Chase.
For me, it's like when I came out as trans in college, it was my first girlfriend at the time. She was the one who kind of like vocalized that, because I had been having those thoughts for a while, but I hadn't really like talked about it to anybody. So I kind of like broke down for a bit, and it was just kind of this huge weight off of my chest to finally have somebody initiate that conversation, since I didn't really know how to do that. I came out to my sister first. She has been my biggest supporter on my journey. She actually helped me pay for my name change. She's helped me on multiple times get my hormones when I needed some help with that. My dad's family was not quite as supportive. Actually, they were not there for me at all, to be entirely honest with you. But I've had a lot of support from my friends. I kind of made my own family and found my own group. So I've been very fortunate to have them along on this journey as well. I also found a lot of comfort in, I would go to Basics in Cedar Rapids. I went there for the drag shows a lot over the last like couple of years. And it's been very freeing, honestly, just having the support of my sisters and my friends. They've really helped me out a lot on the journey.
And then Ben or Nick, did you have anything that you'd like to kind of add to either of that?
Sure. For me, I guess when I started thinking that I was trans, I was scared. So I had a lot of trans friends, and I was like, I'm not as dysphoric as you guys, and I'm not as, I'm still girly. I still like to snuggle, and I still like puppies, and I still like, what we would consider like feminine things. So I was like, no, I can't be trans. I can't be trans. You guys are more trans than me. And then a good friend of mine sat me down, and he's like, it doesn't really matter if you like these things. It doesn't matter if, you have feminine qualities, like they're qualities. It doesn't mean that you're not a guy. It doesn't mean that you couldn't be a guy. And then I sat down and I talked with my therapist about it. I've been seeing her for about almost 5 years now. We had a really good relationship, and she turned me over to this pamphlet called Unicorn, Gender Unicorn or something. And it was literally like a scale rating of, where do you see yourself sexually and emotionally, and like how do you identify, like what do you like to wear, and it kind of just kind of confirmed for me. And then I was like, oh shit, where do I go from now? Wait, all of these people are on testosterone. I need to get on testosterone, like right now. And that wasn't really the case. I went to a walking clinic, honestly. I went to Mercy Care here in Cedar Rapids. I was like, hey, so I think I might be trans. And they're like, okay, what do you want? And I was like, can you get me in to see somebody? And they're like, yeah. So I went to see a doctor in Iowa City, Nicole Nisley. She's fantastic. And she, you know, talked me through it. You know, these are the things you could do, but you don't have to do it. Like, you don't need to feel pressured into doing any of these things just because that's what's typical of trans people. You don't have to go through top or bottom surgery. You don't have to get on testosterone. You can live as you, however that feels comfortable. So I took my sweet ass time and I got comfortable with ideas of things. My friends and, you know, my mom, she's been my top supporter. During drag, she'd help me like bind my chest. When I felt dysphoric, she's done the same thing. Or, you know, she tries her best to call me by my preferred name and pronouns. And actually this year for Mother's Day, she's like, you know, I didn't want you to feel upset. So instead, I'm going to celebrate you for Father's Day. So she celebrated my partner instead and is going to celebrate me for Father's Day. And, you know, it's just little things like that she's like, oh, by the way, I saw this thing on TV and I had to watch it. It was about trans people. And I was like, oh my God, that's my kid. And so she's just been, you know, my rock with everything. And then, like I said, I had a lot of trans friends. And then all my other friends, they're very supportive. I have a lot of friends in the LGBT network, I guess. So they've all been supportive of everything and kind of helped me along my steps. And yeah, so that's kind of been my journey, I guess.
And any resources or support networks that you found that were helpful or inspirational for you?
The first thing that I found was, I mean, I sort of realized I needed to just face this head on in this huge sort of losing my shit, frankly, one day after, you know, at the age of 36. And the first thing I did was sat down at the computer, you know, dial up internet. It was 2001, right? And just opened whatever was whatever you had then, and typed in transgender. And I found my way to a Yahoo group for FTM guys, and you know, that group was just everything to me, everything. And it was early enough that there just wasn't a lot out there. In fact, when I had my surgery, my top surgery in 2004, there were only 3 places that I could have possibly gone: San Francisco, New York, or I think it was Montreal, somewhere in Canada. Those were the only 3. So it was, and now, you know, and of course insurance didn't pay either. Plus you had to pay for 2 weeks in a hotel wherever you were going to go. So a lot of that conversation was just really important, because there weren't like web pages where you could go and see the stuff. It was really having to talk to some of these guys that had been through this before, and that was huge. And then in early 2002, we went to a conference called True Spirit, and I think that was the last year, but it was in Washington, D.C., and I'd never met in real life another trans guy. And then we're going to this conference, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them all at once. But it was a great conference. There were a lot of different workshops and plenaries, and we met some fantastic people. And my therapist, a fantastic therapist, I was the first trans person she ever worked with. My doctor, I was the first trans person she ever worked with. And so I was just incredibly lucky. Pretty much everybody that I turned to for medical help, for, you know, anything, it's like, I'm not really sure I know what I'm doing, but I'll go through this with you if you trust me. And yeah, I was really fortunate. But there really weren't books there, you know, there really weren't things to refer to that much to see what other people's stories were. So that's something that I'm so glad to see so much more of that now. Because you know, it's like, it's like, you know, a couple of you guys have said, all the different choices, all the different things, which can be overwhelming, but also to say, wait a second, I don't have to fit a little trans man box. You know, I'm myself. But what are all the different things to think about? And I think that's just huge. I had a little bit less of that than I think is there now. Although it was fine because I found everything that I needed.
Okay, and I kind of want to dovetail a little bit about what you said on that, Ben. Mostly because I know it sounded like when you were coming out a little bit in the kind of the early 2000s, it was kind of discovering and walking the path, trying to basically discover that whole path without a lot of resources. And it sounds like you were pretty successful or found you know, a good group of doctors and healthcare providers. Were there any other, and I'll ask you and then kind of generally open it up to the group specifically, were there any other specific difficulties within the healthcare system it had trying to find the care that you were looking for to try to be able to start your journey, or anything like that? Or has it been, you know, have you been able to access the care and the treatment and the specialists, get the access to the specialists you need? So like I said, I'll kind of ask that first a little bit and then kind of open that up to the group a little bit too.
So like I said, I really was so lucky. I mean, a lot of it's just living in Iowa City, I think. And I did get, I was able to find what I needed. The one thing that was really difficult was, even though my doctor was very happy to do whatever she could do, she didn't feel comfortable prescribing testosterone to me just because she didn't quite know the protocol for figuring all that out. So she spoke with someone at the what is it, the endo, what is it, there's a clinic at the U, endo something. What's that?
Endocrinologist?
Yeah. Thank you. And he had not worked with a trans person before either, but one of his former colleagues had. So like, in a way, I had all these people that were calling up people for me, like, hey, I want to help this person. Can you know, going out of their way. But for the first couple of years, I had to go over to that clinic, and everybody else in that clinic was female. And that was really, really hard. So in a way, that was the worst of the dysphoria. I mean, as you know, as I think, you know, probably we all know and have experienced, if you can keep something at bay, like my dysphoria was awful, but boy, was it tamped down. You know, I wouldn't have talked about it on a daily level. And when I started to come out, then, wow, now I really have to look at it. But walking into that clinic to get health care, which was a very, very female space, except for the doctors, that was tough. That was really tough. And so finally I spoke with my doctor, my family physician, and I said, can you just take this over? And she said, yeah, but that was definitely difficult. And there were a couple of times when in that clinic, people kind of looked at me funny, like, what are you doing here? And so I felt like that was outing me when I didn't really want to be outed. So a relatively small problem compared to a lot, you know, what a lot of trans people have to go through. But that was definitely probably the hardest part at the beginning.
Sorry, just real quick, like I said, we'll open that up to, because like I said, I know it's a little bit of a generation divide. I know, so I want to see if is that still some of the experience, or that's still out there? Do you, or is it, or are there a lot more resources that you're able to take advantage of with that, or any other issues that you encounter with trying to navigate the healthcare system?
For me personally, I have been able to go to my healthcare clinic, and they always say sir and he and him and his. They've asked me my pronouns. They've been pretty great about, like, you know, I'm like, hey, I'm transgender, blah blah blah, and they're like, oh, okay. so they try to meet my needs. I still do have to go to endo, just because, you know, I still have female parts. And so that part sucks, just like what Benjamin was saying. So walking into a clinic, I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, I don't have what I'm supposed to have, which sucks, but I still need the healthcare that I need. Another big thing that's been an issue for me though is insurance. So I have state insurance, and about a year and a half ago, I was set up for top surgery to get my breast removed, and everything was set in stone. I had my pre-ops, I had all the pictures done, I had met with the surgeon, and I was scheduled for sometime in last April to go in, and I was counting down the days, and my insurance was okay with it. And then a law passed, and Kim Reynolds had stepped up and said, hey, by the way, no, state insurance cannot cover this anymore, and just kind of completely canceled my my surgery, to be honest. And since then, I was told, you know, it's going to be about $8,000 to $9,000 to go through with it. My insurance won't cover it. I have to fund that by myself. And being in a low income home, I don't, you know, I can't come up with $8,000 just to, you know, as much as I want to. And then the same for bottom surgery. So things like that kind of get in the way. Like my healthcare providers are completely willing. I've got all the paperwork. The surgeon is completely willing, but it's the insurance and the, you know, the legislation that kind of gets in the way of that. So.
Personally, I had some issues when I went to go and get my hysterectomy. The first doctor that I had actually sat me down for a good like 20 minutes and was sitting there trying to basically just talk me out of getting it and saying that I would really regret it in like 10 or 15 years when I wanted kids, even though I had been on testosterone at that point for 2 years, and I had accepted at that point that I wasn't going to have biological children, and I was okay with that. And I tried to explain it to her like 5 different ways until finally I just had to cut her off and be like, look, this is what I'm doing. And for my hysterectomy personally, I had some medical issues where I didn't have any issues with insurance covering it because it was deemed medically necessary. I'm hoping that I don't run into any of those issues for my top surgery this fall. And I still have to contact my insurance about it, but Starbucks will like help cover the expenses for that, which is like huge. I don't know of any other company that would even dream of doing something like that. But yeah, so I had to change doctors for my hysterectomy, and after I changed doctors, everything was super great, and we got through everything. And I think that's probably the only issue in like the healthcare system that I've personally had in my trans journey.
For my hysterectomy, I went in prepared for a battle because I was under 30 and didn't have any kids. And I was expecting the exact same thing that you had to go through. Thankfully, I went to somebody who was on that list that Planned Parenthood gave me and didn't end up getting too much pushback. But insurance did cover it because it was deemed medically necessary due to other things that were going on. And as far as like healthcare goes, I've been pretty fortunate because I've been going through the University of Iowa River Landing, which is the same. I've been seeing Susan Kaljeski, which is the same office that Dr. Nicely is through. And I am concerned as to where insurance is going to go from here. I know that a friend of mine just got bottom surgery in New York, and she works for Wells Fargo, and they are covering the whole thing. Like, she just has to pay her deductible. That's it. And that is, oh my gosh, really amazing. So yeah, I know there are some companies out there, but I'm self-employed, so I'm like, okay, well, what insurance do I get?
I'm on state insurance like Nick is, and I do see. I forgot her name now. He just mentioned it, and I can't think of her name. Um, and originally, I was set up to have top surgery because the insurance I had before I had state insurance, and all I had to pay was the deductible. But due to COVID and losing that job, I lost that insurance. So that's why I resorted to state insurance. So I can't even consider doing any of the surgeries because my doctor was basically said like that's a no-go. So it's like, okay, I don't think I can afford paying out of pocket because it's like $8,000 plus time off of work that I realistically cannot afford. So kind of just looking for insurance and something that's affordable so I can just pay the deductible and be able to do that. Um, that's pretty much the gist of that.
Yeah, I know COVID threw a lot of wrench in a lot of people's plans, especially have a question on that. Real quick, I think Claire has a quick wrap question that she'd like to ask, so I'll kind of turn the floor back over to her real quick and have her ask you that question.
All right. I just wanted to wrap this up real quick by giving everybody the opportunity to share maybe some words of wisdom that they may have for anybody who finds this video at whatever point in their journey that they find it. I just wanted to give everybody kind of an opportunity to share some words of wisdom before we wrapped up. Would anybody like to go first?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess something that I could have used hearing is that it's okay to have feminine hand movements or feminine body language. It doesn't make you any less of a man. And you don't have to play into toxic masculinity just because that's the staple of what is to be man. Just be you. You're a man. You're man enough.
Yeah, I'll kind of grab, jump on that because I love that. And I don't know if you can see, probably not, but I got Mr. Rogers up here, right? So that's the kind of man I am. And that's the kind of man my dad was. And that's the only kind of man I ever wanted to be. And I was so fortunate to have a dad like that just, I watched him to know what kind of man I was going to be someday. And so I never had any of that. Hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, which was, again, so incredibly fortunate to me. And I mean, yeah, it's just like Oliver said, you got to be you. You know who you are. The world doesn't necessarily know who you are. There's pressure this way, there's pressure that way. And, we all have things that we need to do in our lives to really feel like we can move forward the way that we can move forward. And if transitioning is what you need to do, it's never too late. I'm a perfect example of that. No matter how old you are, but if it's not what you need to do, that's great. I mean, there's so many opportunities to just take a deep breath and, reach out and talk to people. And if it's like Chase was saying, if you have a doctor, therapist, whoever, who doesn't give you the answer that is right for you, walk away. There are other people to go and talk to. Once you realize who you really are, don't let anybody convince you you're not that person.
Yeah, just kind of add on to that, like no matter how you're feeling at whatever point you are in your journey, whatever your feelings are, they are valid. You can't let anybody tell you who you have to be. There's not a certain box you have to mark off to say, this is who I am. However you're feeling, as long as you are true to yourself, that's what really matters. And that's something that has really gotten me through my journey.
And I think, go ahead, Sam.
No, you can go ahead. Sorry.
to kind of follow up on that, I think it's important to know that you don't have to fit into a box. You don't have to, like I thought, I'm not masculine enough. I'm not dysphoric enough. Don't compare your journey to other people's journeys. Everybody's journey is going to be different. It's going to be done at a different pace. It's going to be, maybe there's similarities, but don't compare yourself to other people. And don't try to fit yourself in a little box. You don't have to be all ripped and masculine, and you don't have to, I don't know how to explain it. You don't have to be a stereotype man. You don't have to fit the gender norms to, believe that you're a guy, to know that you're a guy, I should say. So just, be true to yourself. Don't try to pretend something that you're not. And, continue being you.
There was advice my parents gave me when I was younger, and I kind of wish I would have listened a lot better than I actually did, was you can do anything you want, you could be anyone you want. And I think that kind of like fits with this, just for the fact that you don't, everybody's been saying, you don't have to fit in that gender norm box, and you don't you could be however you want to be. And as long as it makes you happy and it doesn't hurt anybody, you should be able to do what you want. And I wish I would have listened to my parents when I was younger, because I probably would have been a lot happier and a lot more comfortable than I have been within the last 10 years. So.
Excellent. Thank you all for sharing. And I want to thank everybody on the panel who joined us tonight. I want to thank Amy for assisting and moderating. I hope in the future that we can all get together again and have these discussions. And I wish you all well, and be kind to yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a great-
guys.
Thanks.
Stay out there, and thank you very much for participating.
Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride!
Happy Pride.
All right.